Our assets belong to Lisa and her husband, you know. It's only natural to leave them to our beloved daughter. That's right, she's our only family. The moment I heard those words, I quietly placed the kitchen towel I was holding on the counter. For the past 15 years, I had single-handedly managed all the housework and caregiving. I had endured days of stopping my father-in-law's wanderings and catering to my mother-in-law's every whim. Yet to them, I was nothing more than a stranger. I see. You're absolutely right. As I spoke, my mother-in-law Alice looked at me. She was wearing a triumphant smile. Seeing her expression, I calmly continued. In that case, I will be leaving today. My preparations for moving are already complete, so it should only take about an hour. What are you saying? Alice's eyes widened. My father-in-law, Hank, remained frozen, still holding his newspaper. It was clear from their reactions that my words had taken them completely by surprise. Wait a minute. What do you mean? Are you planning to abandon us? I wouldn't expect a stranger to ask for anything, would you agree? At that remark, Alice's face froze. I stood up without a word, left the living room, and began my preparations. Everything was ready. My son, Sean, had also helped, and most of our belongings were already packed. My name is Emily James, and I'm a housewife in my mid-40s. When I married my husband, Kevin, 15 years ago, our life was full of hope. Kevin was a gentle, kind man who approached everything with sincerity. Just seeing his smile could make my daily fatigue vanish, and he provided me with a sense of absolute security. Our life wasn't wealthy, but it was filled with a special kind of happiness. On our days off, we would take walks in the nearby park, watch movies at home, or tend to our small vegetable garden. Those ordinary moments were precious to me. Look, Emily, this tomato is turning red. Let's use it in tomorrow's salad. He was the kind of person who would say things like that with genuine excitement over small things. We used the tomatoes and vegetables we grew together to add color to our dinner table, and the time spent laughing with him is still a treasure to me. Throughout our married life, Kevin always acknowledged my efforts. Emily, dinner is delicious tonight as always. Thank you for working so hard every day. I can't express how much those words supported me. They made me want to try even harder for him. And with Kevin, I was blessed with our precious son, Sean, which brought us even greater happiness. But our happy days came to a sudden end. It was a few years after our wedding when he started feeling unwell and went for a checkup at the hospital. The words the doctor had delivered then were so unbelievable that we felt like we were being crushed under the weight of despair. I'll be okay, Emily. We'll be together forever. He said with a smile, but his words sounded painfully sad to me. A deep anxiety that this might be our last moment of happiness spread through my chest. And then certain words from Kevin would drastically alter the course of my life. On the day he passed away, he left me with one final request. After Kevin was hospitalized, our daily routine gradually changed. At first, his symptoms were mild, so we believed he could recover with treatment. However, the diagnosis we received from the doctor and the rapid progression of his condition were far beyond our imagination. I'm sorry, but treatment is proving difficult. From now on, our focus will be on palliative care to ease his pain. When I heard those words, my vision went dark. Kevin, maintaining a calm expression, gently squeezed my hand and said, "It's okay, Emily. As long as you're here, I can be at peace." I couldn't hold back my tears at his words. I vowed to do everything I could for him. I spent my days commuting to the hospital after work. And then the end drew near. One night, Kevin, holding my hand in his hospital bed, spoke to me. "Emily, after I'm gone, please take care of my parents." "Oh, don't say that, Kevin. You're going to get better." Tears wouldn't stop flowing, but Kevin, with a little more strength in his grip, continued. "I have faith that you'll be able to support them. They're a bit awkward, but they're my precious family." His eyes held a deep sincerity and kindness. I could only nod at that gaze. "I understand. I promise I'll fulfill your wish." Kevin smiled and quietly closed his eyes. That was our last conversation. After his death, a great sense of mission remained in my heart, the promise to support Kevin's parents. Relying solely on that feeling, I decided to move in with my in-laws. The suggestion from my in-laws came sooner than expected. Right after the funeral, Alice said, "Emily, let's live together from now on. We want you to support us so that Kevin can rest in peace. If you come to our house, you won't have to worry about making ends meet." I felt a slight discomfort with her words, but I didn't have the option to refuse if I wanted to honor Kevin's last wish. After marrying Kevin, I had quickly become a stay-at-home mom. The thought of having a home where I wouldn't have to worry about finances with my son Sean was admittedly a relief. I decided to pack my things and move to their house. However, what awaited me there was a harsh reality far beyond my expectations. When I first set foot in my in-laws' house, a subtle anxiety crept into my heart. I had relied on Kevin's words that they were awkward but kind. But upon meeting them, I began to question those words. Alice, in her mid-60s, exuded an imposing aura. When I greeted her, she stared at me intently and said, From now on, please take care of our needs. Kevin asked you to, didn't he?" Her words lacked any hint of gratitude and carried a tone that implied it was a matter of course. Her gaze was cold and seemed to be testing me in some way. Hank, on the other hand, didn't even lift his head from his newspaper and muttered, "Well, this should make things a bit easier. We're counting on you, Emily." His words, though casually spoken, had an undercurrent of pushing a heavy responsibility onto me. It was then that I first realized that life in this house wouldn't be easy. The initial greetings were barely over when Alice began to unilaterally explain the house rules. Wake up at 5 a.m. to make breakfast. Then, cleaning, laundry, and grocery shopping are all your responsibilities. Also manage Hank's medication. It's not that difficult. Overwhelmed by the sheer volume of instructions, I nodded along to each one. I told myself that this was to keep my promise to Kevin and his family. Oh, and don't involve Lisa. She's busy, you see. As long as you support us properly, that's all that matters. Lisa was Kevin's older sister. I had not interacted with her since the wedding, but apparently she held a special place in this household. Even so, I didn't get a chance to meet my sister-in-law right away. This was the beginning of my life in their home. The way Alice gave orders, Hank's indifference, and Lisa's existence, which I had yet to fully grasp, were all factors that would later have a significant impact on me. In conversations with my in-laws, the name Lisa, my sister-in-law, came up frequently. Lisa apparently lived about a 15-minute drive from my in-laws' place, was married, and had 2 children. To Alice, Lisa was a daughter to be proud of, and Hank often said Lisa is really put together. However, that put-together daughter was not involved in any caregiving whatsoever, and Alice seemed to accept this as a matter of course. Lisa is very busy, you see. She's overwhelmed with work, housework, and taking care of her children. It's a real help that you're doing all of this. Every time I heard those words, a question arose in my mind. If Lisa, as a family member, couldn't support her parents, then why must I bear the entire burden? A few days later, I had the opportunity to meet Lisa when she visited. My first impression of her was that of a woman with a gentle smile who addressed me in a friendly manner. "Thank you for always taking care of Mom and Dad. I can't do it myself, so it's a real help having you here." Her thank you didn't sound like genuine gratitude, but rather carried an undertone of, "It's your duty to do this." And beneath that smile, I sensed that she was taking advantage of her position within the family. I gradually came to realize that in this family dynamic, I wasn't relied upon as a member, but rather exploited as a convenient resource. Soon after I started living with my in-laws, I came to realize the harshness of the situation. At 5 a.m., I would be awakened by Alice's knock on the bedroom door. "Emily, please prepare breakfast. Your father wakes up early, so if you don't prepare it quickly, he gets grumpy." I would go to the kitchen as instructed and start making breakfast using unfamiliar utensils. Alice would stand behind me giving detailed instructions, and Hank would take his seat, expecting me to serve him tea as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "This tea is lukewarm. Make it a bit hotter." While managing such comments, I would start preparing lunch. Alice, watching me move tirelessly between cleaning, laundry, and shopping, said with a laugh, "It's a great help that you're so active. You're young, so you can handle it." In my mind, I wanted to retort, "Is this something that can be managed with youth alone?" But I simply nodded silently. Just as I thought our life was getting into a rhythm, Hank started showing signs of change. He began to forget things more frequently and often wandered around. This marked the beginning of new challenges in our life at the house. It had been a few months since we started living together when Hank's dementia became apparent. At first, it was just minor forgetfulness. Where are my glasses? Where did I put them? The glasses were right there on the newspaper in Hank's hand. Alice would laugh it off, saying it's just old age. But as days passed, his symptoms progressed. One day, we found his wallet in the refrigerator, and Alice looked perplexed. "Emily, is Hank really okay?" The situation became more serious when he started wandering around at night. One night, I found Hank trying to unlock the front door and go outside. "Hank, where are you going?" "To the station. I have to catch the train." I had no idea what he was talking about. It seemed like Hank's memories were reverting to his working days or his youth. After that, he would often wake up in the middle of the night pacing around the house or calling out names of people I didn't know. Each time I had to calm him down and guide him back to his bedroom. During the day, I was busy with housework and taking care of Alice. At night, I had to keep an eye on Hank's wanderings. My sleep was constantly interrupted and both my mind and body were accumulating fatigue. Alice initially tried to help but quickly gave up, saying, "I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving Hank entirely in your care." I didn't even have the energy to argue with her. I understood that if I didn't take care of Hank, the household wouldn't function. However, it was clear that Hank's care was adding a significant burden to my already heavy load. Moreover, Hank's verbal outbursts and emotional instability increased, creating a tense atmosphere in the house. In the midst of all this, Alice's health also started to deteriorate, further increasing my responsibilities. As if the burden of Hank's dementia wasn't enough, Alice's health began to decline. She had always suffered from lower back pain and joint issues, but one day she fell on the stairs. After that, even walking became difficult for her. "Emily, my back hurts so much I can't move. Can you bring me some tea?" After that, Alice spent more and more time in bed, requiring assistance with her daily activities. Not only did I have to prepare her meals, but I also had to help her change clothes, bathe, and even accompany her to her doctor's appointments. "The soup is a bit lukewarm. Can you reheat it for me?" Her requests were specific and required me to stop what I was doing multiple times to attend to her. Managing Hank's emotional ups and downs while also taking care of Alice's health felt like an endless marathon. Moreover, Alice used her health as an excuse to push all housework and household management onto me. "With you here, Emily, I don't have to worry about anything." There was no hint of gratitude, only a blatant attitude of taking my health for granted. With the simultaneous challenges of caring for Hank and managing Alice's health, I felt both my mind and body approaching their limits. However, I couldn't let the housework slide either. As the housework and caregiving intertwined, I gradually lost all sense of personal time. My day starts at 5 a.m. when I get up to prepare Alice's breakfast and medication. Then I go to Hank's room, which is often in disarray due to his wanderings, and tidy it up. After calming Hank down and serving him breakfast, I help him get dressed and clean his bedside area. In the morning, I go grocery shopping, making sure to buy specific items according to Alice's detailed requests. If I forget one of Hank's favorite snacks, he throws a tantrum. Alice adds to the pressure by saying, "You've been quite absent-minded lately, haven't you?" By the time I prepare lunch and finish the laundry, my body is already screaming in protest. In the afternoon, I assist Alice with her bath, all the while keeping a close eye on Hank to make sure he doesn't start wandering again. When evening comes, I prepare dinner, arrange the dishes according to Alice's preferences, and clean up Hank's food spills. By the time everything is done, it's already late at night, and there isn't a single moment left for myself. Days passed with me being constantly at the mercy of my in-laws' demands, yet not a single word of thanks was uttered. Only a sense of isolation accumulated. While feeling both my mind and body nearing their breaking points, I continued to persevere, driven by my promise to Kevin. Alice's nagging started to become more noticeable around the time I had somewhat adjusted to life in their home. Initially, it was minor criticisms like the cleaning isn't thorough enough, or the way you fold the laundry is sloppy. But gradually, it escalated into hurtful comments and unreasonable demands. "Emily, this room feels a bit dusty, doesn't it? Are you actually cleaning properly?" Hearing those words, even though I had vacuumed every corner of the room that morning, I could only apologize sincerely. Alice continued to find fault in trivial matters and scold me. One day, while Alice was watching TV in her room and I was preparing dinner, she raised her voice. "Emily, the batteries in this remote are about to die. Change them right away." I rushed to her room, putting my kitchen tasks on hold. Alice was sitting there with her arms crossed, waiting for me. As Alice said, the remote's batteries were indeed low, but seeing her unwilling to even change them herself, I couldn't help but feel frustrated. Moreover, Alice would sometimes make comments that undermined my efforts. "The soup you make is always a bit bland. At this rate, Hank won't be able to regain his strength, will he?" That comment stung deeply. Despite being overwhelmed with housework and caregiving, I tried to be creative with the meals. But to Alice, my efforts were nothing more than failures. It didn't stop there. Alice would casually bring up my past and my marriage with Kevin. "I wonder if you and Kevin getting married was really the right choice. There must have been someone better out there for him." I couldn't raise my voice against Alice's unreasonable remarks. However, each time she said something like that, I felt something crumble inside me. At night, Alice would make new demands. "The pillow height doesn't feel right. I'll get a headache in the middle of the night if it's not adjusted. Change it right now." Despite it being the middle of the night, I rushed to her bedroom and readjusted her pillow. Alice accepted it as if it were the most natural thing, letting out a satisfied sigh. Meanwhile, I was overwhelmed with a sense of despair, wondering how long this life would continue. I endured those unreasonable demands and cutting remarks day after day. But there was one more person in this family who pushed me further to the edge. My sister-in-law, Lisa. Lisa was the prized daughter of Alice and Hank. Her name was mentioned almost every day in the house. However, she only visited once or twice a month, and even during those brief visits, Alice would often say, "We're so happy whenever Lisa comes to visit." I couldn't understand that sentiment at all. One day, Lisa visited with her children. While sipping tea in the living room, she casually gave me instructions. "Emily, could you get me a refill of tea? And also, could you tidy up the play area a bit more for the kids?" While I followed her instructions and cleaned up, Lisa chatted happily with Alice. Alice repeatedly said Lisa is such a good daughter, and Hank nodded in agreement, saying it's good to see Lisa happy. When Lisa was leaving, I saw her off at the entrance. She smiled and said, "Thank you, Emily. It's a relief to have someone who can take care of Mom and Dad. With my kids, I just can't manage it all, you know." There was hardly any gratitude in her words. It was evident that I was being treated as someone who should naturally fulfill this role. I couldn't say anything back at that moment. Moreover, whenever Alice and Hank praised Lisa, they would compare me to her. Even though Lisa is busy, she makes time to visit. Real daughters are different, aren't they? If only you, Emily, could be a bit more considerate like Lisa. Knowing that Lisa did almost nothing to help, those words wounded me deeply. I couldn't help but feel that I wasn't a family member in this household, but merely a convenient presence. One day, Alice made an even more unreasonable demand. When Lisa comes, make sure the house is tidier, because your cleaning isn't up to par. She feels uncomfortable here. Hearing those words, I felt something inside me shatter. The moment I was told that my role was to clean for Lisa's sake, I completely lost sight of my own purpose. In the midst of such loneliness and injustice, my son, Sean, was my only solace. His kind words were the only thing that kept my fragile heart from breaking completely. How heavy and painful this life was for me. In those days, my only salvation was my son, Sean. He had become a high school student and was busy with his own life, yet he never failed to show concern for me. One day when I was hanging laundry late at night, Sean quietly approached me. "Mom, are you okay? You seem tired lately." "I'm fine, honey. Don't worry about me." I tried to force a smile, but Sean looked at me with earnest eyes. "Mom, you're pushing yourself too hard. You don't have to carry everything alone." His words almost made me burst into tears. No matter how many harsh words I received from my in-laws and Lisa, Sean was always there to understand me. Just knowing that was enough to lighten my heart a little. The next day, after returning from school, Sean said to me while I was cleaning the living room, "Mom, take a break. I'll help with whatever I can." He then started tidying up his own room and even began washing dishes after dinner. Every time I saw him doing that, I was filled with a mix of guilt and gratitude. However, there was still a conflict within me. The last wish Kevin entrusted to me was a heavy vow. That's why no matter how tough things got, I couldn't bring myself to consider leaving the house. "Kevin, am I doing the right thing? Is this life really what's best?" At night, when I was alone in bed, those questions echoed in my mind. I had been enduring, telling myself that I was fulfilling my promise to Kevin, but I started to question whether this life was truly good for me or for Sean. One evening, Sean suddenly said, "Mom, if you ever want to leave this house, I'll support you all the way." I was at a loss for words. I hadn't imagined that Sean felt that way. "Thank you, but I'll try a bit harder for now." Even with Sean's support, I couldn't find the courage to take that step. As the days with my in-laws continued, I could feel my heart approaching its limit, yet the sense of responsibility towards them and my promise to Kevin kept me bound. The only reason I continued this life was because of Kevin's last wish. He entrusted me with the words, "Take care of my parents before he passed away." That was my sole driving force, my responsibility. "Kevin, am I doing all right? Am I living up to your expectations?" The caregiving for Hank, who had dementia, Alice's unreasonable demands, Lisa's irresponsible attitude. I carried it all, telling myself it was for Kevin's sake. No matter how much I was met with ingratitude or treated unfairly, the only thing that kept me going was my commitment to fulfilling Kevin's wish. But my mind and body were honest. As my in-laws' demands escalated, I completely lost my personal time. I would stop Hank's wanderings in the middle of the night, adjust Alice's pillow, and prepare breakfast at dawn. With hardly any sleep, my body grew heavier with fatigue, and my mind gradually became numb. Maybe I'm reaching my limit. Then one day, a casual remark from Hank shook my resolve to its core. His words would shatter everything I had been holding on to and push me towards a new decision. During dinner one day, Hank suddenly said, "Our assets belong to Lisa and her husband, you know. It's only natural to leave them to our beloved daughter." The moment I heard those words, the fork in my hand froze. Alice smiling added, "That's right. After all, Lisa is our only family. It wouldn't be normal to leave anything to a stranger." I was speechless. The fact that I had single-handedly taken care of all the housework and caregiving for 15 years, and this was their response? It felt as if the core of my being was turning cold. "I see." That was all I could manage to say. Anger and sadness swirled inside me, but I couldn't bring myself to show any emotion in front of my in-laws. Alice, oblivious to my inner turmoil, continued. "Besides, Lisa is really trying her best. Even though she's busy, she makes time to visit us. Daughters are really something, aren't they?" I was the only one who knew that Lisa used her busy life as an excuse to avoid helping with caregiving. Every time Alice praised her, I felt a quiet rage building up inside me. What am I even doing here? That night I found myself alone in the kitchen, washing dishes and thinking. My in-laws' words wouldn't leave my mind. Only family, a stranger. This was how they saw me. No matter how much I did for them, I was not and would never be considered a necessary part of this family. If anything, it was my efforts alone that they found necessary. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I had endured Alice's nagging and Hank's indifference because of my vow to Kevin. But the realization that they would never acknowledge me as family almost broke my heart. That night, my son, Sean, came into the kitchen. "Mom, what's wrong? Your face is red." "It's nothing. I'm just a little tired." Sean, who knew the struggles I faced, didn't press further, simply saying, "Don't push yourself too hard," before returning to his room. Sean's words brought a faint light into my heart. Maybe continuing like this would not only be detrimental to me, but also to Sean's future. This incident with Hank's words began to change something within me. Should I keep exerting myself for my in-laws, or should I prioritize Sean's and my own life? The answer wasn't clear yet, but deep down a decision was starting to take root. The night after hearing that Hank intended to leave their assets to Lisa and her husband, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking I had given my all to honor my promise to Kevin. Yet to them, I was just an outsider. In this family, I felt like my place had been completely denied. The next morning, as I was making breakfast in the kitchen, my son, Sean, came in, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Mom, you don't seem okay lately. Is there anything I can do?" His words warmed my heart for a moment. Sean was the only one who tried to understand my pain and fatigue. His presence was the sole reason I could endure this life. "Thank you, Sean, but I'm okay." As I answered, I thought to myself, is staying in this house truly beneficial for Sean? That night, while folding laundry in the living room, Sean suddenly spoke to me. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot. If you ever want to leave this house, I'll go with you." I stopped my hands and looked at Sean. His expression was serious. "I've been watching you suffer, Mom. I honestly get frustrated with Grandma and Grandpa too. If you'll be happier, I'll follow you anywhere." Tears almost spilled out at his words. Realizing how much Sean cared for me, I began to realistically consider the option of leaving the house for the first time. That night, I took out Kevin's photo for the first time in a while and quietly spoke to it. "Kevin, I might be at my limit, but I'm scared of betraying the promise I made to you." In the photo, Kevin's gentle smile remained unchanged, but I felt a decision solidify in my heart. I had endured until now to keep my vow to Kevin. However, I began to feel that protecting Sean's future was also a way to honor my love for Kevin. The next morning, I quietly started my preparations. I needed to plan the move, with Sean first, being mindful of my in-laws' movements. With my resolve firm, I started to meticulously plan, keeping any unnecessary emotions at bay. First, I told Sean about the plan. I waited for Sean after school, and we sat in a nearby park as I quietly broached the subject. "Sean, I'm starting preparations to leave this house." Sean looked surprised, but quickly nodded, a serious expression on his face as he looked at me. "Mom, that's for the best. I'll help with whatever you need." His words relieved me, but I also felt the need to plan meticulously. We had to proceed without Alice or Hank noticing, which required the utmost caution. Our first task was securing a new place to live. Thanks to a friend of Sean's, we were able to find an apartment available for immediate move-in. It wasn't too far from the in-laws' house, and the commute to school would be manageable. Next, we started packing little by little. Alice spent most of her afternoons watching TV, so I used that time to sort through our belongings, discarding unnecessary items and packing essentials into boxes. While my personal belongings were minimal, Sean's textbooks and hobby items were surprisingly bulky. "Mom, can I leave this at my friend's place for now?" Thanks to Sean's friend's help, we gradually moved our belongings out of the house. To avoid raising Alice's suspicions, I acted normally during the day and complied with her requests. "The house feels a bit tidier lately. Thanks for keeping things organized, Emily." I forced a smile at Alice's words, encouraging myself with the thought that it would soon be over. As the moving arrangements fell into place, Sean also started to show his anticipation for a new life. "Mom, when we move, let's buy new curtains. I'll make sure to keep my room tidy too." "Sure, let's get curtains in your favorite color this time." Planning for our new life together brought back a warmth to my heart that I hadn't felt in a long time. Amidst the difficult days, I started to feel the joy of looking forward. Finally, everything was ready. On the day of the move, I planned to tell Alice I was leaving. I was prepared to take the first step towards a new life with Sean, away from this house. With all the preparations complete, I finally resolved to tell Alice that I was leaving. After dinner that day, I waited for the right moment when Alice was watching TV in the living room and quietly began to speak. "Alice, I have something to tell you." "What is it? Is there a problem?" Noticing the seriousness on my face, Alice turned off the TV and looked at me. Her gaze carried its usual authority, but I took a deep breath and continued. "I'm leaving this house. I'll be moving out tomorrow, so please keep that in mind." For a moment, the room fell silent. It probably took Alice a few seconds to process my words. The next instant, she raised her voice, a mix of surprise and anger. What are you talking about? Did you forget what Kevin said at the end? He asked you to take care of us, didn't he? Her words were sharp and direct, piercing my chest, but I was determined not to back down today. I remember, because of what Kevin asked, I've done my best for 15 years. But I understood very well how you see me after what you said the other day. Alice frowned, tilting her head with a displeased look. What are you talking about? Lisa is your only family. You said you wouldn't leave anything to a stranger. If that's how you feel, there's no reason for me to be here. Alice's face momentarily tensed, and she opened her mouth as if to say something, but I continued. I stayed here to keep my promise to Kevin, but if I continue this life, it wouldn't just be me, but also Sean's life that will be sacrificed. So, we're going to start a new life. I won't allow such selfishness. Are you planning to abandon this house? I'm not abandoning it. It's just that it's wrong to ask something of a stranger, isn't it? At those words, Alice was at a loss for words. Hank glared at me. You'll regret this. The world isn't so easy for a jobless woman like you to survive. At his words, Alice continued as if she had gained the upper hand. That's right. How are you going to make a living? If you get down on your knees and apologize now, I might forgive you. I was stunned and let out a sigh. There's no need to worry. I found a job at a nursing home through a friend's connection. Both of my in-laws' eyes widened. Most of the inheritance from Kevin was left untouched, but considering Sean's future, there was no such thing as having too much money. For our future life, I had secured a job through a friend. Finally, I quietly concluded. Alice, Hank, thank you for everything. Lisa should be there for you from now on. Please, take care. I stood up and turned to leave the living room. Alice started to yell something at me, but Sean cut her off, saying, Mom, I'm ready. The moment Alice's gaze shifted to Sean, I left the room. Tomorrow, a new life begins. I headed to the room where our luggage was packed, vowing never to look back. On the morning of the moving day, I woke up early and began the final preparations. Most of our belongings had been packed the day before, so all that was left was to pack the minimal daily necessities. In the quiet house, I worked, thinking that this was the end. Mom, need help? Sean entered the room and effortlessly lifted a cardboard box. Feeling reassured by his presence, I continued checking the luggage. Soon, I heard Alice's voice from the entrance. Emily, what are you doing? You're not actually planning to leave, are you? I took a deep breath, picked up my bag, and went to the entrance. I answered as calmly as possible. As I said, I'm leaving this house today. We'll be out in an hour. As I carried out the luggage, Alice followed me to the entrance, her expression of a complex mix of surprise and anger. Wait, I never heard anything about this. Are you serious? Her voice echoed in the hallway. I turned around and carefully chose my words. Alice, thank you for everything until now, but I have a responsibility to protect my own life and Sean's. I've decided that leaving here is the best option. You're being irresponsible. Are you going to throw us away? At those words, I responded with a wry smile. It's a bit strange for a stranger to be called irresponsible, but you have Lisa. If you have your only family, you'll be fine, won't you? Alice was left speechless, unable to say anything. Outside, the moving truck was waiting, and Sean, after checking on things, smiled at me saying, We can get everything out, Mom. Finally, I gently placed the house key on the table. Alice, Hank, please take care. From now on, please rely on Lisa. Alice tried to shout something, but I cut her off and walked out the door. Sean came to meet me, and together we carried out the luggage. After loading everything into the truck, Sean smiled at me from the driver's seat. Mom, this is our new start. I nodded and said, That's right. Thank you, Sean. Let's do our best together. As the car started moving, the house gradually grew smaller and eventually disappeared from view. I whispered in my heart, This is for the best, and felt my heart swell with anticipation for our new life. A few days after we left the house, Alice called Sean's phone. I shook my head silently at the sight. What should I do, Mom? Don't answer it. You don't need to answer. Lisa is there for them now. True to my words, things seemed to have fallen into chaos at the house after I left. With Hank's dementia-induced wanderings and outbursts, and Alice's failing health, they couldn't manage on their own. Lisa, please come help. It's really hard to take care of Hank. I can't do this anymore. Mom, I'm swamped with getting the kids to and from school and doing housework. I don't have time for this either. Lisa flatly refused Alice's request. The only family that Alice had relied on prioritized their own lives and showed no interest in the situation at the house. Hank's condition worsened. He tried to unlock the front door in the middle of the night to go outside, and he would suddenly get angry during meals. It became impossible for Alice to handle him alone. Things were never like this when Emily was here. The neighbors started noticing the changes at the house as rumors began to spread. I've been hearing loud voices from the Miller's house lately. It seems like things haven't been going well since Emily left. When I heard these stories, I felt nothing. I only felt a slight relief, knowing that they were now painfully aware that the household has somehow functioned only because I was there. Eventually, Alice called again, this time directly to my phone. "Emily, please come back. Hank is out of control and I'm at my limit." Her voice was no longer commanding but weak, almost a plea. However, I replied in a firm tone. "I'm sorry, but I can't go back. You have Lisa, your family. Please work together. You're Kevin's wife, aren't you? And I'm his mother." She was still trying to bind me with that connection, but I told her coldly, "I've already filed the paperwork to terminate our legal relationship." "What does that mean?" "My connection with you, Alice, was through Kevin, but now that he's gone, it's just a matter of paperwork. I've endured for 15 years. I believe I've fulfilled my duty to Kevin. This is truly goodbye." I could tell Alice was stunned on the other end of the phone, but I had no intention of continuing the conversation. I gently hung up and took a deep breath. After that, Alice and Hank's life fell apart. Lisa completely refused to help with their care, saying it was impossible. What became of my in-laws and their struggles was no longer my concern. It was a thing of the past, and I had no intention of looking back. After leaving the house, Sean and I started our new life in a new apartment. Although it was small, the bright and clean room felt like a symbol of freedom to us. It was the complete opposite of the spacious yet cold atmosphere of the in-laws' house. This place had warmth. I was in the kitchen, leisurely making dinner for the first time in a long while. I was making Sean's favorite, an omelette with rice, and a homemade consommé soup. Unlike the rushed cooking I used to do in the in-laws' kitchen, I was actually enjoying this time. "Dinner's ready!" "Yay! It's been a while since I've had your cooking, Mom." It had been a long time since we had a meal together at the table like this. In the days when I was overwhelmed with caring for my in-laws, I couldn't enjoy a peaceful meal like this. Seeing Sean so happy as he ate made me naturally smile. "Mom, you should take it easy from now on. I'll help out too." His words filled my heart with warmth. "Thank you, Sean. Let's do lots of fun things together from now on." The next day, Sean went to school and I went out to explore our new town. In my previous life, going out freely was a luxury in itself, but now I savored the joy of being able to use my time for myself. As I walked through the shopping district, I found a small baking class. I had loved baking since I was a child, so I didn't hesitate to sign up for a trial lesson. That evening, when Sean came home from school, I immediately brought it up. "Hey, Sean, I'm thinking of taking a baking class." "That's great, Mom. I want to eat your baked goods too." Encouraged by Sean's words, I decided to take a new step forward. Our new life had just begun, but there was a future waiting for us. The freedom I gained by leaving the in-laws' house and the deepening bond with my son made my heart positive. At night, lying in bed, I spoke to Kevin's photo. "Kevin, we finally started moving forward. Sean is doing well and I'm trying new things. I'm sure you'll be happy for us." Looking at Kevin's smiling face in the photo, tears naturally overflowed. The 15 years I spent at the in-laws' house were far from easy, but having overcome that, I felt a little proud of myself. From now on, I will live cherishing my own life along with Sean's. I will build a new future without being tied to the past. The 15 years I spent at my in-laws' house were a continuous series of hardships. However, by overcoming them, I gained strength and the power to carve out a new future. The days I walk with my son, Sean, will surely become even more enriching. I will no longer look back at the past. With the pride of having fulfilled my promise to Kevin in my heart, we will continue to walk towards the future. While cherishing myself, I will share happiness with my family and the people around me. I will use the lessons I learned in the midst of my hardships to take my next steps. That is my goal from now on. A new life made together with Sean. That is my true big